Hi, this is Lou here, and my topic today is the fact that how people use games has changed a great deal. Nowadays, people explore games instead of mastering them. So the old way for hobbyists, not party game players or family game players, was to master the play of a game, to try to be a consistent winner. And as there weren't all that many games of the type that were what I'll call cerebral, it was easy enough to spend time mastering one or several. And even though commercial non-family games arose, you could master a large proportion of intellectual board games. Players tended to play games more times per title. Now, of course, it's usually 1 to 3 plays and on to the next game. Players would read the rules several times, and they'd play the game solo to gain better insight to strategies. It was all about ways to beat the other players. In contrast, now it's about exploring the game system. So, players don't read the rules at all or try to read them while playing the first time nowadays. How many people play solo to learn strategies? It's quite rare. Players aren't interested in mastering the play. And partly that's okay insofar as most contemporary games are pretty easy to master. They have more breadth than depth. They'll focus on variety rather than depth. Games are designed to be transparent so that it's easy to learn to play adequately. And playing adequately is all you need to do the exploration. You don't have to be good. So players want to see what each game has to offer and then move on to the next. It's just as though they were exploring new lands. And this is why there's an emphasis on innovation. Innovation surprises, and with so many cookie-cutter games, it's often hard to be surprised even by a new game. So players explore the game to see the various combinations that result in somewhat new decisions at least. So most of them are exploring the game system, or what video gamers call the environment. They're not exploring what to do about other players. And exploring the game system is a lot simpler. Players are unpredictable, and there's a great variety of players, much greater than the variety of the game system. These games are also ones where you can rarely have much effect on other players. In fact, they may be single-player games, in the case of many video games. In a sense, the other players are a distraction, not a center of interest. In video games, you beat the game and then you're done with it. In the old way, there was a greater concentration on players and less on the game system. You beat other players, not, quote, beat the game, unquote. Cooperative games, which have become popular recently, are another illustration of this solving of the puzzle. That's why a friend of mine says he can guarantee a win in Pandemic unless one of 3 or 4 cards comes out early. It's a puzzle, and he's solved it. And that's pretty much inevitable for tabletop cooperative games, because there's not a lot of complexity you can build into the non-computer opponent. Now, is this change bad? Well, not when that's what people want to do. And I think it helps broaden the market for games in general. It's certainly easier on the player's ego for sure. Players are not focused on winning, so if they don't win, as long as they've learned a lot about the game, that's okay. But it's far from the old way of playing games, especially classic games like Go and chess and checkers, and even the early commercial games like Risk and Stratego and Diplomacy. It's certainly vastly different for designers. Designing what's essentially a puzzle that players can explore is a whole lot different from designing a game where the game enables the players to interact highly with each other. Because I despise puzzles in general, and that includes most Euro-style games, I can't bring myself to design that kind of game. The alternative is that I want to design games that can be played at least 25 times, if not hundreds. I know people who have played my game Britannia, which is a 4 to 5 hour game for experienced players and a 7 or even 8 hour game for beginners, more than 500 times, which is a lot more than I ever played it. I don't want to design games that have always correct solutions, but that's not how the contemporary world works. So ask yourself as a designer, what kind of game are you designing?